for those of you who haven't seen it, I have a recurring nightmare about time zones. I have actual recurring nightmares. I will wake up in sweats and I'll have like 3 different devices around me. I'll have a watch, I'll have an alarm clock and a phone, and they all say different times. And I'm like, I don't know what time it is. So,
just take an average of them.
yeah.
That's what I do.
Yeah. Or the men.
I can sleep for 8 more hours.
I'm good. JH, well, I guess we might as well go ahead and get started. Why not? Unless there's anything else we should talk about. JH says, would the following 2 queries with the same execution plans but with different costs be considered parameter sniffing? He's got 2 different queries with just different where clauses specifying different values. Totally. Imagine for a second that one has more data than the other. You know, one has 1 million rows and the other has just 5 rows. So they could totally end up. I'm fresh off of parameter sniffing. I'm giving our parameter sniffing class as we speak during our week-long parameter, our week-long performance class. So I immediately jump in and I'm like, I should answer that, but no one else knows. Everyone else on the team knows.
No, that's like textbook parameter sniffing to me, right? When just one thing changes in the where clause, given that query, it's probably even just getting a trivial plan. So SQL is just like, oh, I got this thing here, go do something.
What's your favorite resource on parameter sniffing? If you want to go learn more about it or go tell someone to learn.
Ours. I would look it up on our site.
That's not fair.
Yes, it is. It's totally fair.
We need a shortcut.
Our Slack channel. That's what our primer Slack channel.
We need a short code for parameter sniffing on our site. Come to think of it.
You know, that's actually a good question because I feel like I've learned so much in small pieces over the years. I couldn't point to one thing that I'm like, oh, that's where I figured it all out. It's been like just little chunks and bits of, and I fix it with what?
Oh.
JH follows up and says, slow query has much less rows, kind of weird. And I would say you could try out the optimize for option if you're on SQL 2008 or greater. And maybe try optimizing for whichever value has the faster speed.
Yeah. Know that it's technical debt. You know, when you do that, you're hard coding it into your query.
I would actually try recompiling first just to see if you get a different plan for one or the other.
And I would argue that they don't have the same execution plans. They may be the same shape and have the same operators, but they are not the same if the costs are different.
Yeah, agreed. Especially it just may be larger amounts of data that's moving from one place to another, but your giveaway there is that the costs are different. Totally.
Yeah, the arrows in between the operators are going to be, have different sizes or whatever it is.
If you have access to SQL Server Management Studio 2016, so Management Studio 2016 is totally free to go download. There's a new compare show plan feature where it'll show you just the things that are different between 2 execution plans. It's not perfect. It's got a lot of gotchas and drawbacks. But if you Google for SQL Server Management Studio 2016 show plan or compare show plan, there's a bunch of folks who've written up different write-ups on how you go about using that.
You know what, actually given his circumstances and the relatively small amount of questions that we have, so we can spend some extra time on it, I would actually start looking at statistics at this point. If there are a much smaller amount of rows but it's much slower, because I think something weird might be happening with the histogram, like maybe it's not picking up on the skew or something. I would take a look at that and check when the last time the stats got updated, or just look at the histogram and see if it's an off histogram step, if it's just sort of guessing a bad amount of rows for that value.
Gotcha. The other thing we pop up a lot is the Erland Summerskog's epic post, slow in the app, fast in SSMS. So if you search for slow in the app, fast in SSMS, Erland has like this 50-page long treatise on parameter sniffing. And it gives all kinds of different causes and all kinds of different fixes too.
Well, that only took 4 minutes to bring up that post. That must be.
I was going slow. I was like, I should, not introduce this immediately.
Pull the trigger.
I can't believe I don't have a parameter or short code for that, like brentozar.com/go/ should probably be Erland, because I just referenced that guy so much for that one.
There are so many to choose from. He has so many great treatises, like biblical, start in the beginning there was SQL Server 2000.
I did an entire week newsletters just of Erland Summerskog's post at one point. One of our Monday newsletters was nothing but Erland's posts. Just wonderful. gift that keeps on giving. Which reminds me that I need to set up a watch that page alert for whenever his posts change. Yeah.
Because he is nice enough to keep them updated.
He is. Frederick asks, can you guys think of any reasons to run your database backups through an SSIS job? I took over servers from another DBA, and it seems he was obsessed with SSIS. I want to replace all these backup jobs. Tara, did you do backups through SSIS? Because I know you were an SSIS and RS fan.
Of course not. I didn't do backups through SSIS. But there's, I mean, to answer the question directly, is there any reasons to run them through SSIS? No. But is there any reason to change it? Not really, if it's working, you know. But if you want to change it and the guy's no longer around and you're not going to hurt his feelings, change it, you know. Use a custom solution. I mean, it's working, though.
Yeah, one reason that I could think of to do it is if I had a centralized SSIS server that I wanted to run jobs on a bunch of other servers for. So if I wanted to not manage backup jobs on each and every server, and I just wanted to have one central server that I could reach out to other stuff with, I might do it that way then. But, you know, I also have never opened SSIS, so chances of that
we
are
did.
slim.
Yeah, we did have a SSIS central server to run everything on all the AGs and stuff, but the actual backups were on the actual SQL instance, because you want to be able to back up you know, system databases. I mean, you can still do that through SSIS, but we just had the other things for SSIS on the central server.
It just smells like bad idea jeans, you know?
It does smell like bad idea jeans. Yeah.
It smells like someone was most comfortable with SSIS and just used that hammer for every nail.
Like such an awkward hammer. Oh my gosh.
Well, it's a graphical hammer where you can put things where you want them and then point arrows to other things.
There's no leverage in the hammer. I mean,
it's actually a two-dimensional hammer.
And to be fair, we like SSIS. You know, nothing wrong with SSIS. It just doesn't, you know, use it for what it's used for. Backups is kind of an oddball thing. I'm even usually I try to come up with reasons why someone would want to do something, and I'm like, I got nothing. I got nothing there. The unknown asks, I'm deleting records from a table, and it takes 5 seconds per record. 5 seconds per record. We will now pause and simulate how long it takes this man to delete one record. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He says, there are no triggers in the database. What else should I look for?
Wait. See what the query is waiting on. Do a, you know, SP who is active, SP who, sys processes, whatever your favorite tool is to take a look at you know, current activity, see what that's waiting for. Probably blocking, I'm assuming.
Ooh, I like that. Richie, what'd you think?
I checked the indexes. Maybe it's trying to do a lookup on a foreign key somewhere.
That's true, yeah.
Keys. Oh, I like that too. Eric, how about you?
I would not look at index fragmentation. I mean, let's see, stuff. I think I'm with Tara on this one with the blocking.
I
Also,
love
if
SP who's active for that.
Might be weird, like doing like just going through forwarded fetches and whatever to find what it needs.
Oh, a heap with large amounts of deallocated space. If you have to scan the whole heap, that could do it too. Oh, this would make a great blog post. And so unknown, I'll actually just bang out a blog post about here are all the places I would go look next. But I think the start of all our troubleshooting would just be run SP who is active to see what that wait type is for that query when it's running.
I'd also kind of be opposed to deleting things one record at a time. Like if the mechanism you're using to delete one record at a time is slow, like if it's a cursor or a weird while loop that does some other stuff.
Or the foreign key referential integrity thing, if it's even deallocating heaps, I mean, that one at a time would kill you there too.
Yeah, a lot of stuff.
Yeah, one of the things that when I used to go into clients, first thing I did is, oh, look, you don't have any indexes on your foreign keys. I had a script that automatically populated all of them, and all of a sudden, you're a genius. What did you do? Yes. Oh, I don't know, some secret sauce or something I can't divulge, you know, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, it's the easiest thing to do. You don't have index on your foreign keys. All of a sudden, your updates and your deletes are faster too.
This makes for an interesting question. So how do you guys feel about referential integrity enforced in the database? So like, do you like having foreign keys? It's so interesting. So because Tara goes thumbs up, Richie goes thumbs down or thumbs sideways. Erick, how about you? Any opinion?
Absolutely. I like having referential integrity enforced in the database for perf reasons. Aside from when things get weird. If you do have foreign keys and you index them properly, you can get join elimination and some other nice stuff out of execution plans. But there are some issues with when you have cascading actions attached to your foreign keys, especially if you're altering large amounts of data. Under the blankets, what SQL does in order to enforce the cascading actions is put into the serializable isolation level, which can cause some pretty nasty blocking and blocking situations if you're not careful.
Now, Tara, you immediately put your thumb up, like way up. So why is it what you're really excited about it? What do you like about it?
As a production DBA, you want to protect the data. You can't rely on the developers to do the referential integrity, to follow the business rules in the application. So you want it on both sides, really.
Uh-huh. And then it's funny that our developer, Richie, immediately put his thumb down.
Of course.
No.
This is why DBAs don't like developers.
Yeah, I thought we were going directly towards the cascading, which I hate. I mean, it's just really annoying. Referential integrity, yes, absolutely. Cascading, down, bad. I've had arguments with architects for some people I used to consult for about having referential integrity inside the database because, the app will do it, it'll always do it, and will never load data inside the database directly to it with a bulk load. Well, occasionally, don't you think it'd be nice to have the referential integrity there to protect the data? Well, maybe, yeah, okay, yes. And the answer is we need it in both.
One reason why I'm really in favor of doing it via foreign keys and stuff is because people will often fall back on triggers as a second option to enforce it, and that just ends up with all sorts of bad news stuff happening.
Yeah, I like it because I don't usually see it as a big performance drawback. You know, and hey, why would you not like data reliability at hardly any of a performance impact?
It's just a few asserts in your execution plan. What's the big deal?
Just a few asserts. Besides all those table scans that you're doing for other reasons, this is the least of your problems. JH says, our VM SAN admin is trying to persuade our DBA team to move away from Windows clusters. He said that his VMware technology provides high availability. I think we still want clustering. What do you guys think?
Prove it.
I mean, you can have both. I mean, do it on the VM side as well as do it on the Windows side. You want to be able to have a failover cluster or some other node, database mirroring availability, or some other high availability solution in place for Windows, so that when you do Windows patching, you don't have a lot of downtime waiting for the VM to reboot. You just have the 30-second failover, for instance. Technologies work in conjunction with each other. Or, I mean, they're separate. They're completely separate, but you can do both.
And more protection, the better, right?
Yeah.
Mm.
The problem with the VM as high availability is when somebody screws up a Windows patch or a SQL patch or drops a table or trashes a system object, all of a sudden I can be totally screwed. Somebody fills up the C drive is the other classic example. So I get nice high availability there in clusters.
So another thing that a lot of people don't think through when they do that is that you then have to set up some VM affinity so that your nodes don't end up on the same server at the same time, because then that kind of ruins your high availability. Because if that one node goes down, both servers are on that. Goodbye. There's no failing over. Yes, you're highly unavailable. Hugh.
Brent asks, not me, but another Brent asks, is there a way to use statistics to see where I should put indexes? So if SQL Server's automatically created several stats, should I create indexes on those same fields? Erick got excited there.
Take it away.
No, because that's really cool, because SQL does create statistics on columns if it finds them interesting. Do you need an index there is a good question, though, because you wouldn't just go and create a bunch of single column indexes on every column that SQL has created a statistics object for, and you wouldn't want to create one wide index across all of the statistics objects that SQL has created system objects for, because SQL only creates a histogram based on the leftmost column in your indexes. So SQL is obviously your where clause may you have more items, or your joins may have more or different items in them than what's just in the leftmost column of the histogram. So I wouldn't just haul off and be like, yeah, let's just create an index on everything that SQL has a statistics object for. I would go back and I would start looking at my queries. I would start looking at my execution plans, perhaps for more obvious, either for straight up missing index recommendations, or for some obvious, index tuning opportunities, like if you have like any big sorts or any hash joins on small amounts of data, stuff like that.
My favorite tool to use would be SP Blitz Cache. Take a look at that and see what's being slow in the cache.
Or Blitz index in the old mode 3 will get you all your missing index requests.
Is it mode 3 or it's mode 4?
3 for just missing indexes.
Oh,
4
I
gets
haven't
you
seen that.
everything. 3 only gets you the missing indexes. It's funny, we all use them in different ways. I'm like, I never use mode 3.
I've used mode 3, but it doesn't show any output. So maybe it was a different version. So
My server is so good.
well, there's
So
missing
finally-
indexes. Maybe it was a bad version.
Which we have a lot of. Speaking of which also reminds me, I got to fix. I was doing a demo today, and I realized that SP Blitz Index now, with get all databases equals 1, the indexes aren't sorted in impact order. They're sorted backwards for impact order. I'm like, oh man, I got to go look at that. Unknown asks, in a related question, why are your first responders? Madonna asks, why your first responder names start with SP prefix, SP underscore? Doesn't Microsoft still advise avoiding this special prefix? Okay, so I'm answering this because this is one of my personal hot buttons, and Aaron Bertrand can go suck it. So Aaron Bertrand is one of the other big guys in the SQL Server community who's like, don't name your stored procedures with SP whatever, a row and a record are different, fields and columns are different. So there are edge cases where the calling of a stored procedure can incur some extra penalty if SQL Server has to do name resolution to find the stored procedure, because it's going to look in master when stored procedures start with SP underscore. Guess where people put the Blitz stored procedures? In master. Guess where they want to run it from? Every database. So they want to be able to run, for example, SP Blitz index from any database without prefixing anything. And here's the deal. I don't care if all your stored procedures begin with SP underscore. If the time it takes to resolve a name is the biggest problem in your environment, you deserve a Medal of Honor and a big slab of chocolate cake. That is not any kind of significant performance impact for any environment that I've ever seen. Meanwhile, I've seen people going, make sure your stored procedures are named correctly. And the code inside the stored procedure is so heinous, I need to take a shower after I look at it. So focus less on the names and more on the content. Now, having said that, you probably shouldn't look at the content of our stored procedures either, because that's heinous too.
And it's a little bit awkward for Aaron to say that, considering he wrote SP for each DB.
That's true. Yeah.
A little awkward. So SP for each DB is really cool. It's a sort of Aaron's replacement for the built-in stored procedure MS for each DB, which sloops through your databases and has a bunch of known problems around skipping databases and not being able to figure things out. So Aaron rewrote this cool thing called SP for each DB, and it has a bunch of awesome flags where you can skip over things and put in name patterns and skip system databases and all good stuff. I used to use it all the time back when I was doing relativity stuff, and I had to deploy indexes across all the databases because there was a lot of work to do to make sure that there were actually columns that matched the names and all those. Ugh. God, I'm going to go cry after this.
Bad times episode. Nate asks, SP Blitz Index has recommended some high-value missing indexes that don't seem right, especially ones that include almost every column in the table. Why is that? Where are those indexes coming from?
Anyone? All right, fine.
Yeah,
so
you've
they
worked
come
on it
from
recently. So.
they come from missing index. I know it was probably me. I may have forgot to put descending in for that.
No, I think I tested it too, and it looked good to me. So
yeah, oh, crap. All right, it's something else then. Woohoo! So missing index requests come from a part of the query optimization process called index matching. And what index matching does is SQL Server takes a query and it says, if I needed the perfect index for this query, I would go and look for this one. And it sort of throws the dice, and if it doesn't find exactly the index that it wants, and it feels that that index could reduce the query cost by some internal algorithm percent or amount, then it logs that request, logs that opportunity in missing index DMB. SP Blitz Index only looks at missing index DMBs, and we try to do some smart filtering on what would actually improve performance, but we can't know everything about your server just from the missing index DMBs. The reason that you're coming up with these indexes that are perhaps keyed on one or two columns but include every other column in the table is someone is either running select star queries, or you have EF developers who are not trimming down the columns that they actually need from their EF queries, and so you really are selecting every single column in the table, and your where clause is only keyed on perhaps an ID column or maybe an ID in a date column or something. So that's why it has those two key columns there. But the only way for SQL to really make an efficient, an efficient index to resolve that query is to include every single other column, because it's dragging back every single column, and it may not want to do key lookups for all those columns, even if it's just keyed on a couple for the where clause or join. And that's all I got to say about that.
In defense of vanity framework, folks, sometimes we do need to get all the data from a table.
And that's fine.
But
create an index for it.
All the time, people, it's ridiculous. Sounds like a post I've got coming out soon.
There is a post. Richie has a post coming out about how to change Entity Framework so that it doesn't select all the columns. It turns out it's easy. So easy a caveman could do it. I was impressed. I'm a caveman.
I still couldn't do it. Still partially frozen, so.
It's just a simple unfrozen caveman. Temple asks, I have a 4-node cluster running SQL 2012 with always-on availability groups configured. I have one node in a file share off at another site. I want to fail over to that other site and test our DR plan. Any gotchas from our experience?
Oh, I got this one.
Go wrong.
You will only have 2 resources at that other site. So, if you lose the network connection between the 2 sites, your cluster is likely going to go down. Your production databases will be down. So you're going to need a 3rd resource. So maybe have another node. Having one node out there is not the greatest. What happens if, something happens to that node? So maybe 2 nodes out there and your file share witness. So you don't want just 2 servers for your quorum and having boats.
That would be awkward.
Yeah. When I first set up an availability group in production, we had 6 nodes, 3 at the DR site, 3 at the primary site. This is on SQL 2012, so one of these servers at the DR site was a cold standby. You couldn't have that many replicas, but we needed to have identical hardware at both sites. That was a requirement that we had with our customers in case we had a failover. So we did have a network glitch between the 2 sites. That is going to happen at times. And at the time, before that, we'd always use failover clustering, and the Windows admins had taken care of quorum and boats. And with availability groups, that falls on both teams basically. And I didn't know about boats, and suddenly production was down when we lost the connection between the 2 sites. And that is when I learned about boating or cluster boats. And we had to disable the boats on the DR site, and then we had node majority on the primary site.
Which version of Windows was that with?
That would have been on Windows
Server.
Yeah, that would have been Windows 2008 R2, but yeah, Windows 2012 R2, you do have the dynamic quorum, and it can manage that for you, and a file share witness is recommended, and I believe the default on that version of Windows. Still, you should still understand quorum and votes, even when using 2012 R2.
Oh yeah, because if you lose network connectivity between the 2 data centers, even when 2012 R2 can't recover in time, if too many of them fail all at once, it's going to think that there was a split brain scenario and yank the plug.
But you can do force quorum resiliency, and you can bring one side up.
Yes.
Right? Isn't that the way that works?
Well, you have to do it, and then you have to restart the cluster again because you can't start an availability group when you did a force quorum. I have an hour-long session during the senior DBA class where I walk through this happening and show people screenshots, and eyes just keep getting bigger and bigger. Like, you should do this before you have to do it live. And that, of course, that's only one of the gotchas there. I mean, there can be all kinds of other gotchas. Make sure you enable your backup jobs over on the other side. I'm a huge fan of the instant that I fail over, if I don't already have full backups on the other side, I need to take a full backup as quickly as possible. If I have fulls but no logs on the other side, I need to take a differential as quickly as possible. Make sure that your log backup jobs are up and running over there. Your user accounts can be different on both sides. You need to sync SQL agent jobs, all kinds of things you got to sync across there. Let's see. Unknown asks, could there be some performance improvements combining NUMA with maxstop equals 1? Sorry if my question is vague, it is, but I heard this a few days ago from the DBA of a high throughput system, 300,000 transactions per second, and I wanted to ask you. So I'm not saying 300,000 transactions a second is impossible, it's doable, but that person is probably doing some very specialized tricks. I would ask for more information about where, what the system was like, where his guidance is, because there are people out there, dag nabbit, what's the guy in the suit? Thomas Kaiser. Thomas Kaiser is a classic example of guys who do this. Who's the other guy in New York?
Thomas Grozer.
Thomas Grozer, yes. And these guys have great, they're so cool to listen to their stories. But what they're doing is very different than the rest of us great unwashed out in the gutters are doing.
And the 300,000 transactions per second, probably, if you look at batch requests per second, it's probably much lower. Usually transactions per second is a very inflated number as compared to batch requests per second.
Well, and, yeah, I mean, I have so many thoughts on that. If they are 300,000 per second, you probably do only want maxstop 1. Ain't nothing going parallel when you're doing 300,000 per second.
Yeah, at that point, you're doing very narrow key lookups. You're doing one row at a time stuff. You're not, doing reporting the queries. Everything is very properly indexed. Your isolation levels are on point and change within the, stored procedure. You're doing everything right.
Well, I would argue you're doing one thing wrong, which is you're doing 300,000 queries per second against a single box. You should shard that out and spread the load around, but that's cool. JH says, I saw your recent email on SQL 2018 features. Any idea when that's coming out? Should we go migrate now to SQL 2016, or is the community not at all confident yet? JH, that was a joke. Those features, if you read those features carefully, for example, scented error messages, your server's pretty safe. Those are not coming out anytime soon.
No, but what if it was?
What if it was? Then I would hold out for the edible result sets. That alone would be worth the results there, worth the upgrade. A person with a very tough to pronounce first name, whose first initial starts with S, says, I have a SQL 2012 to 2016 upgrade I want to do. I want to do it in place, and I ran the upgrade advisor. I only got a few warnings, so should I go ahead and upgrade this thing in place? What do you guys feel about in-place upgrades?
I didn't even used to do in-place upgrades in the test environment. I mean, just too much disaster can happen. You don't have a fallback plan if you do an in-place upgrade. I mean, just imagine trying to undo that if it doesn't work. I've done side-by-side upgrade when this, each instance exists on the same physical server or VM, because that's still considered side-by-side when the instances are next to each other. Backup and restore, detach, attach, whatever it is. I usually prefer, though, that the servers be completely different. But in-place upgrade, I think, is risky, even in test environment. I'm the same exact feeling on that. Lori says, a developer is requesting a separate SQL server to house the data for an internet-facing application because he's concerned about security if his data shares stuff with a payroll application data. As a DBA, what should I do about setting up separate security precautions about this kind of application? I think the developer is right. I mean, I think that you should separate this out. That's what I've always done. It usually has special firewall rules in place, to really lock it down, and your internal stuff, is going to be on the intranet. Yeah, I would not put these on the same server if I were the DBA. As far as if you are going to put on the same server, as far as security goes, make sure no one has sysadmin. Pay attention to this. What kind of server roles users have. I don't even like DB owner for applications. I like, just the minimum amount of permissions for each application account. And I like store procedures in that sense, so it's just exec.
I would also explain what licensing looks like, because on an internet-facing server, you are licensing by the core. There's no CAL licensing available on that, so it's the real deal. Let's see. There's a unknown follows up with his 300,000 queries per second. He says, please don't say the company name, but the company name is blank. I've heard that company name before, and I think they are doing SQL Server. I vaguely remember hearing this. I wouldn't be surprised if they were doing 300,000 either batch requests a second or transaction requests a second. But you would want to shard that out. You mentioned that you're taking an interview. This is one of those ways, if you want to strap a rocket to your back and learn a ton, if you want to learn a lot about how high concurrency stuff works, just make sure you strap it to your back and not your rear end, because you go into a shop where they've done something like that and you're on call, you can have a really ugly.
That's weird. I've never heard of Gary's goldfish before.
I love them.
Contoso. Interviewed at Contoso. The in-place upgrade guy follows up and he says, this is SharePoint? Again, yeah, we wouldn't do it.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Makes no difference.
Could be AdventureWorks. I'm still not doing it.
Yep, no thank you. Unknown says, do you have a favorite hardware performance benchmark tool? If you're going to go benchmark new SQL servers, do you guys use anything for benchmarking? Have any of you guys ever done benchmarking? I don't know that I
Yes.
Yeah.
Minimal.
I'm in the cloud now, so I don't do any of that stuff.
In the cloud, there are no benchmarks.
I just
Oh,
spin
you
up
just
more
need the
servers.
spec sheets?
I can't remember. Is it SQL.io stress or something like that? That's
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah,
We did
SQL
that.
IO too. Yeah.
But we also had a whole performance load test team, and they would just hammer the server when new hardware.
That's kind of awesome.
Yeah,
Wow,
I mean,
what kind of job would that be?
that would be fun as hell. That would be like us at
Yeah,
DBA
right.
days all the time.
Oh my God,
Well,
that would be so much fun.
It requires very special, like developer knowledge, because they are writing scripts and doing programming and stuff like that. So it's really not a DBA type role. I like working with them though. Get to find all these cool things.
Yeah, nobody wants to be a developer. They suck.
Well, I was going to say, no, she's saying that because she's seen our code. She's seen our team. She knows we're completely inappropriate.
I'm just saying from a DBA perspective, going into performance load test team might be challenging if you don't have a developer background.
Every time we bring out a new version of SP Blitz or SP Blitz Index, she hears us complaining about our lack of unit testing. Is anything broken? God, who knows?
Works on most of these versions and most scenarios, but I don't.
Yeah, that's about it. All right, well, thanks everybody for hanging out with us this week, and we will see you guys. Adios, everybody.
Bye-bye.